It is your boy, the Mulatto Ronin, back on at it again with another banger and fire video for y'all's out there today. They're y'all. Welcome on back to the channel. But guys, I gotta educate a lot of parents out there, the ones who have either mixed race, MGM, multi-generational, light-skinned children, or if you have mulattoes, out here, so first generation mulattoes out here, black and white. Wherever the case may be, if your child is light skinned like myself and they have Afro type features and also mixed with Eurocentric features as well, very, very important when it comes down to choosing school and, getting these kids, their education. It's very, very important that you know how to move because you can't raise these kids like any other type of kids right now, especially here in America, because America is very, very behind, super behind. And what America has done in terms of the education system, they have stripped away their identity of these kids, and it's just absolutely disgusting. So first thing first, I wouldn't even consider putting them in public school. Nothing just of that order yet, because I think these kids, you need to get them up there in terms of like physically. You need to make sure they're physically strong, very sharp. You need to you need to educate them outside of what they're going to learn in terms of school. Now, for that reason, yes, do not send them to public school. I would say at least until high school. And honestly, you should really consider homeschool these kids for a good amount of their school life. And I'm saying that because there's a lot of dynamics they're just not aware about, and you need to really teach them their history about themselves, because listen, not all black is black. These children are not black. I'm letting you know that right now. I didn't have my wake up call until I got older. I'm literally waking up at like 20. I mean, even though I'm 26 now, but like I really did not know until like literally last year. I used to think all black is black, but looking at all the experiences and then seeing what other light-skinned, racially ambiguous people have, experienced, and just seeing the mental gymnastics, you just have to go through as a racially ambiguous person when you're dealing with people. It's like, no, we really are a special group out here. And I see why a lot of people want us to stay confused, because we're very smart and very, very intelligent people, but you have to come at us a different type of way in terms of raising us in education. So if I have children, this is what I would do. I would put them in homeschooling. I know a lot of y'all gonna be like, I want my kids around all these different other kids. I'm gonna get to how the black school works, because like I growing up, my first school was a black school. Actually, no, second school was a black school. Yeah, I forget my first school. I think my first school was like a white school. It was a little different, but and then I went to a very diverse school. So I'm definitely gonna go through those dynamics as well. But the reason why I say you should choose homeschooling for like at least elementary all the way up to at least until they finish middle school. Reason why I say that, because you need to make sure these children know who they are in terms of their identity. Like I said before, they're not black. These kids are the golden race people. And I'm actually working, trying to, reach out to organizations, politicians, so we can get our class here in America, because we used to have the mulatto class, but the issue with bringing back the mulatto class in this day and age is because there is a lot of different mixes, in terms of light skin with Afro type features. You got the Afro Latinos, you got the Blasians, and then you got the MGM multi-generational mix like myself, and then you got the mulattoes, so first generation black and white. So but we all do look very similar, and we do have a similar experience in terms of life. You're not going to quite fit in with kind of anybody. You're really in your own lane in society, and it's very, very important that that needs to be acknowledged, and how their history, especially between black and whites, the most common mix, has been erased from them. It's literally been stripped away due to the one drop rule that messed it up for everybody. Because like now you're gonna have a lot of confusion. Because I'm seeing a lot of mixed kids being born, and listen, that's great that like our numbers are growing, but without the proper education, these kids are going to grow up very, very confused, and I don't want that. So keep them out of public school and everything until they at least hit high school. And they need to be in online school, homeschooling, hands down, because you need to teach them their history. They need to know their identity. And most importantly, they need to really be in decent shape. Make them hit the gym at least 3 days a week. That's how much I be training. I know kids got more energy, so you can really go on runs and stuff with them. But hey, give them some weights and stuff. Give those kids some discipline, man, because these kids can be really, really sharp out here, and if you raise them right, they can really come out really great. Because listen, man, if I had to rewind time, if I knew what I knew now, I would have been on so much farther ahead in life. But in terms of just, I'm gonna get to basically the dynamics of the black community, and how it really, I ain't gonna lie, how it kind of messes you up in terms of your growth, because you're going through society not quite fully fitting in with black people, and you're partially accepted, but only if you move a certain type of way. And if it's not that type of way, you're the outcast. And us, man, we really don't care, that's the beauty with us. But at the same time, due to that, our growth is going to be slower. So our growth is stunted. So this is why you can't send these kids to a black school right off the rip. A lot of people say, oh, black is black. Oh, nah, don't fuck with that shit. Do not believe it. Don't get me wrong, I have a mutual respect for black people, and I will definitely stick up for them in terms of ones that really do got my back. I see some injustice or whatever going on, I will definitely go stand up for them. But to say that we're all black is just not true. If you're walking around with this phenotype and you get around black people, strong envy, strong hatred, even within family, guys, this shit goes deep. People do not want to see, I'm not going to say they don't want to see it, but they hate it though. They love it and they hate it, so don't send these kids to public school right out the rip. Now, let me get into the dynamics of a black school, and also, a diverse school as well. So a black school, if you send one of these kids over there and you tell them that they're black and black identified, the issue with that, they're going to go in there and right off the rip, basically they're going to have to feel like they need to prove themselves, because that's basically how the black community, rolls. They're not going to make you the face of the black community. And this is why you need to identify as mulatto, you're racially ambiguous. You're the golden race of people. That's what you need to identify as, because if you come in there and say you're black, nah, you're light skinned, you're sticking out like a sore thumb, you got all these you got Eurocentric features to you, and people will hate you, especially because you are going to attract, a lot of people. You may get a lot of favoritism at times, so, and that's going to upset a lot of, black kids, unfortunately, so without you even trying or really doing much. So there is that aspect. And then on top of that, the issue with also calling yourself black, it's man, it's going to be people that feel some type of way, because they're going to tell you straight up, nah, you're not black. Walking around, guys, when you're young and you're light skinned, you look very, very white, super, super white. Black kids are going to tell you straight up, oh no, you're white. So I don't want you to get confused. Guys, I really don't want the kids to get confused out there in terms of who they are. And when they go to a black school, now I will say a black school will make them tough. They will be socially aware. And one of the beauties of, I will say, about a black school, with that toughness that they're going to get. And also with a black school, okay, cool. If people run their mouth, they tend to throw hands with it. That's one thing I will give black people. If you're going to run a fade with black people, you're going to run the fade. White people, not so much. You try to run a fade with a white person, be like, oh, do it. I'm gonna get my dad to sue you. That's white people. Because I've been to a diverse school, and they like white people off the chain, man. I will say very rare have I ever had an issue with white people. But I ain't gonna lie, when I do, it's really hilarious because when you do step to them, like trying to really like go at it, they be like, no, 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 no. Like, I mean, they really pussy out, but I mean, that's what I know is now that's not all of them. Someone will throw some hands now. Do not get it twisted, but like the ones from the sticks, like the backwoods and shit, the rednecks and them, yeah, they'll throw hands, yeah. But the privileged preppy ones, nah. The suburban boys, yeah, they ain't throwing no hands. They ain't doing that shit. Rednecks, oh yeah, they'll throw them hands with you. But when I went to a diverse school, one of the things I noticed, this was more different. So you put them into a more diverse school. I don't really like how do I put this? It's more peaceful, and there's all different groups. You're gonna meet a lot of different people. For me, when I went to a very diverse school growing up, that was my first time exposed to really different types of women. Cause I was used to all black women, mixed mulatto type of women, growing up at a black school primarily. And then when I went to more diverse school, I wasn't used to white women. So that was my first taste of white women. And I ain't gonna lie, I was like, damn, like this, I love me some white women, so that was my first taste. I ain't gonna lie, my first white woman, I was a little terrified to tell my parents. I was like, damn, I don't know how this shit gonna go. They like, oh, Al, you gonna bring you back a sister. You already know how, melanated people be, man, Afro-melanated people be. You already know, man, and I was just like, dang, how do I tell my parents? And you see, and this girl at the time, she wasn't just white, she was white. I mean, when I say that girl was white, she was white. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna try to ease this onto my mom. I'm gonna wait till it was like my 8th grade graduation or whatever. Yeah, my 8th grade graduation, and I say, I'm gonna just kind of slowly, introduce her and stuff, cause yeah, she was right there with me, like, hey, I'm happy to go meet my mom and stuff. Let's play it cool, introduce you, pretty chill and stuff. So I come over there, I got my award in hand, had my, my ex at the time, in 8th grade, we were walking up in there. White women show out so much in terms of like when you bring them around family. And as soon as I got over there to my mom, I was like, hey, Mom, before I can even finish the sentence, this girl, she just hugs me and she all up on me. And she's like, I'm so proud of you, Al. I'm like, right in front of my mom. I ain't gonna lie, my heart almost dropped because I didn't know how my mom was gonna respond. Cause listen, that's my first time ever being with a white woman. So, and you already know how handsy a white girl can be, especially when they really do like you. And damn, man, knowing what I knew now about women, bro, oh my gosh, bro, ain't no telling how long, I could have kept her, bro. But it's cool, hey, you live and you learn. But at the time, man, when that whole situation happened, and my mom, she was just like, thank God she was cool with it. And then, the girl, I ain't gonna say her name, but yeah, she introduced her to my mom and everything. She like, hey, nice to meet you, I'm such and such, and my mom, she just smiling with that face, like, Al, we gonna have a talk once we get home. How mothers give that look. That was the look my mom gave me. My dad, he didn't really care. He just say, son, proceed with caution. That's how my dad was. My mom, she's more, you already know how mothers are when it come down to women, and like the sons, yeah, they really spot on with that. They finna watch you like a hawk. They finna, yeah. So, but yeah, the girl, like the white girl at the time, very, very handsy, super close and just all over me. And my mom, she was like, she wasn't really feeling that energy, but but she still played it cool. And after the award ceremony, we had got back home, and Mom was like, hey, Al, I'm cool with you being with that girl, but just slow it down. Like, she seems a little handsy, kind of fast, which I ain't gonna lie, at the time I ain't really know what fast and shit was, but I ain't gonna lie, yeah, she was a little bit. But at the end of the day, I ain't gonna lie, I ain't even mess around during high school. Like, I ain't mess around till I got outside of high school. That's when I started, really knocking shit down. But even now, it's very rare, because I always had a certain type, and I always ask questions, like, and I also tried my best to really try to, like, every woman I talk to, I always try to make sure, we're building towards something, like it's not just a fling. Like I just never been that type of dude to just, go out there on a fling, like that's just, I don't know, like I'm just different like that. I don't believe in just giving out my body just to anybody and everybody. I like to just know the person who I'm dealing with. But anyway, but yeah, I was surprised. My mom, she was pretty chill with it, but she was, at the same time, she was concerned. It's like, oh man, them white women don't got to, cause I wasn't used to that type of affection, like from women like that, like she was like, y'all already know, man. Hey, anybody who's black or mulatto, and you get your first taste of a white woman, you already know how that shit hit, But I'm past all that, all that now, like yeah, I still rock with them, but yeah, I know how they move. But anyway, going back to school and everything, what a diverse school in terms of these children when you're raising them. The biggest issue in terms of like a diverse school where it's like it's primarily ran by whites. See, they're not really used to how black people and black people, tend to move. Even though I'm mulatto, in like MGM, multi-generational mix and everything. Even though I fall into that category, but growing up, you grow up as black identified. You don't know yourself until you get older. But that's why I'm putting y'all on game early. But so, but with blacks, it's very straightforward. If you don't put your hands on nobody, if you run your mouth a certain type of way, that's a fade. A diverse school ran by a lot of whites, and like they don't quite get that. That's one thing I noticed. And it's a lot of people very slick with the mouth, but then when you stand up and really try to catch a fade with them, white, oh no, we don't, no violence over here. I'm like, man, we niggas, man. Like, come on now. At the end of the day, like, and yeah, like that's the issue. It's like I feel like you gotta kind of have to suppress your blackness low key, at like a white ran school. But I mean, I don't do that shit no more. But I mean, I definitely gained a lot of self control from that though. That's one thing I will take away. But yeah, man, that, I mean, looking back, I would have beat the shit out of almost everybody that ran their mouth. I wouldn't have cared. Looking back, I would literally go back and go beat the shit out of this person, that person, that person. Like, I wouldn't care. See, because back then, that's school, like, you ain't got to worry about shit until you hit about 16. Then that's when that real testosterone started to come in. That's when you start to get that dangerous power coming in. Then that's why I say you got to be a bit more careful, But anything before that, oh yeah, you can throw them hands, in my opinion. I'm not saying you should, but yeah, I'll go ahead and run that fade. Because after a certain age, you got to really have that good self-control. But yeah, like a diverse school, like you're going to notice like they, especially ran by whites, like they're not used to, like, I'm not gonna say they're not used to, but they just don't understand like how blacks, like Afro melanated people tend to move in terms of like confrontation. And I get it, with them, they care more about self-control, which is understandable, but it's like, dude, like y'all really don't do no type of consequences for these kids that be wilding out here. At a black school, you can't do that shit. Like you gonna get stepped to. You like there will be consequences at a black school. That's the difference between a black school and a more diverse, school ran by whites for the most part. That's the difference between that. But I will say with a diverse school, like I had a lot of different friends. I had black friends, white friends, other mixed friends as well. So it was a different environment. And school for me, it was great. It wasn't like bad or nothing, but I mean, yeah, it had its moments. But again, like when it comes down to us as a people, a lot of teachers and just a lot of people, staff, they just don't understand how the mulatto type of people, mixed race, Afro type people, the golden race people tend to move out here. They really don't understand that dynamic. But I feel like at a black school, they got a better understanding, because they are more used to us and how we tend to move. But at the same time, um, you do need to know your identity so you don't get screwed over, because like otherwise you're gonna fall into dark skinned black supremacy at the public school. If you go out there to blacks, so just know who you are. That's all I would say. But ideally, don't send these school. Basically, guys, don't send these kids to school until they hit at least, I would say, like at least after eighth grade. Once they finish middle school, online, then yeah, go ahead and do it. But anything before that, nah. Because guys, I'm gonna be real with y'all, man. Like elementary and all that, man, you can do that shit from home. Like that shit cake. Honestly, bro, like middle school probably, actually no, I'll tell you back. I ain't gonna lie, I do think middle school probably like the toughest years in terms of like, work, education, learning. But high school, that shit was cake. I ain't gonna lie, that shit was cakewalk. Elementary was pretty easy, but I would just do it online. Now, some of y'all gonna be like, whoa, they're gonna be antisocial and stuff like that. They're already gonna go through that, especially if they're moving accordingly. So get them used to that, right away. I'm not saying it's good for them to just stand alone and all that 24/7, but it's gonna teach them to have a certain, quality that's okay. Hey, man, I can handle standing on my own. I'm cool with some isolation. Healthy isolation is okay. Now, in terms of getting them around other kids and stuff, you can put them out there in sports. You can put them in local basketball leagues. You can put them in local, like back in the day, I used to do golf. I used to love me some golf. So you can put them in a golf tournament. There are so many things you can put them in. You got sports in terms of like martial arts. You can put them in that. Boxing. I would definitely say boxing. Jiu-jitsu, what's it called? Jiu-jitsu is cool. I ain't gonna lie, I do like jiu-jitsu. But ideally, I would go with boxing or Muay Thai for a son, especially, light skin. Yeah, you need to know how to throw hands. The last place you want to go to is the ground. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, jiu-jitsu is cool. I like it. I love the style of it. It's very cool. I know a little bit of moves, but again, in a real practical situation, especially you send them to the black school, niggas, oh man, the last place you want to go is on the ground. So yeah, you need to teach them how to throw some hands, But I ain't gonna lie, school nowadays it's pretty soft. I ain't gonna lie, nowadays, but still, have them move a certain type of way so they're already in their masculine frame. Like the men, and even the woman to a certain degree as well, because like you walking around light skin, you looking good, like come on now, like you gotta know a little something, because people will try you, and yeah, like just be aware of that. So yeah, like if you looking decent, if you're able to attract women, you're gonna be an enemy of a lot of different people. Even if you're the coolest person, you got a good heart. There's some hateful people out here, and the day and age with the internet all over the place, people got their phones, they can throw some shit on TikTok. Very, very important these kids know how to throw hands before high school. So I never understood that growing up. Kind of my parents, they put me in karate and stuff. I was like, man, I don't want to do that. But then I got older, I was like, oh shit, man, like at a black school, I was like, damn, first time, fading, with niggas, and I wasn't ready for it, So I ain't get whooped, but it's like I did lose. I ain't gonna lie, I only lost like once, but but that was my first time. I ain't never been in a fight, especially with niggas, so that shit hit different, but but after that I was coasting. I went to a diverse school, couple phase, but I won that shit though. But yeah, so I'm glad, I definitely went through a little bit of karate back in the day, but I do need to get back into martial arts again, because just to really, retrain my mind, because that is a good muscle memory to have. But hey, as long as they're hitting the gym bare minimum, at least 3 days a week, they're good, because you can make a lot of progress within a couple years of training, so that's very, very important. So if they got a good routine 3 days a week, they don't even have to have the best diet. As long as they drink a lot of water, get some fruit, you give them their vitamins, supplements, Very, very important stuff. As long as you're doing that, making sure they're walking. In terms of like electronics, have a limit of that. I wouldn't even introduce them to certain, electronics and stuff until they hit a certain age. Got a sense of responsibility in terms of how they move and stuff, self-control, a little bit of discipline. Then you can introduce all that stuff. But again, I know a lot of parents, they don't really. It's a lot of shit parents, unfortunately, here in America. But at the end of the day, this is how I would raise a light skin MGM, multi-generational mix, or mulatto, or as you got a Blasian, wherever light skin that you have, they have Afro type features, and mixed with Eurocentric or Asian, whatever type of features they got. If they're light skin and they got a little bit of black in them, they fall into that category. This is how you should raise them, in my personal opinion. But let me know what you guys think. It is your boy, the Mulatto Ronin. Like and subscribe, share. Y'all take it easy.